Hello and welcome to part 2 of our look at post-production with the Blackmagic Cinema Camera. In our first video we got a look at our general workflow, which included rendering proxies from DaVinci Resolve all the way through final export after color grading in After Effects. In this video we're going to take a much closer look at how we actually go about the task of color grading in Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, so before we get started, I need to make a small disclaimer. Adobe Camera Raw is amazing. It's really awesome, but it's not going to give you the ability to create complex grades where motion tracking or some other change over time is required. So that's the bad news, but in a way it's also the good news because the feature set in Adobe Camera Raw is much more manageable and approachable for somebody who's getting into Raw for the first time. So with that in mind, let's get started. So unlike the Blackmagic's ProRes movie files, the RAW movie files are not singular items in your browser. Instead, each clip appears as a folder containing a DNG file of each frame in the clip. So by browsing through the frames in Adobe Bridge, we're able to sort of scrub through the clip by previewing individual frames. And we're looking for that quintessential representative frame that will set the tone for the rest of the clip. And obviously you can extrapolate that principle when looking for a representative clip in a particular sequence. Once you've found your frame, go ahead and right-click Open in Camera Raw. So for as sunny as this looks, I had Haley out in this field when it was roughly 40 degrees and also very windy. We were both cold and I was probably making some questionable exposure decisions as a result. So if you take a look at our histogram up here, you can see that the bulk of the information is on the hot side. With a DSLR, we'd have a lot of non-recoverable highlights. For this image, my first priority is to see how much I can get back from the sky. So I'm going to drag my highlight slider all the way down. And that's an improvement, but I think we can do a little better. So I'm going to pull the exposure slider down to right about there. And the sky looks a lot better now. And we can toggle the preview button up here to see the difference. But we can also see that since the exposure slider is a global adjustment, Haley got darker as well. So I'm going to pull up on the shadow slider until about there, and if we toggle the preview button we can see that her exposure level is actually just a little above where it was initially. So by making simple quick changes to 3 sliders, I've managed to recover what looked to be blown highlights in the sky, while actually increasing exposure for Haley. And then I can go into our curves panel here, add a quick S-curve, and we have a pretty nice looking image. And while it may have taken a minute or so to demonstrate, in practice this is something I can do in about 10 seconds. And that's really what I love about Adobe Camera Raw. The controls are so simple, and yet they're so capable of producing very powerful results. And while it's obviously not going to replace a program like DaVinci, it can definitely be used to grade an entire project. But there are some specific issues that need to be considered when using Adobe Camera Raw to grade your video footage. The first issue is one that really irritated me for quite a while. I was grading my footage and rendering it out from After Effects, but it was coming out with all this noise and weird artifacting that looked absolutely terrible. It took me a few hours to determine that it was actually the Luminance adjustments that were causing the problem. On some clips, the Luminance adjustment will actually create noise, but on others it will really attenuate it with seemingly no adverse effects. So if you're going to use this feature, use it carefully. Okay, so for the next point, I want you to take a look at the buttons up here. Some of these, like the spot removal tool, the adjustment brush, and the graduated filter tool, are local adjustment tools. These will only affect a particular portion of the frame and it will not change over the duration of the clip. So if you're going to use these tools, make sure you consider the way in which that particular adjustment will play out over the duration of the clip. Now those are things to watch out for, but I also want to mention some really awesome things like the lens correction panel. In this panel we can correct for lens distortion with just a few clicks, and we can add a vignette in a way that looks much more like normal lens vignetting than just a typical black overlay at a reduced opacity. But probably the best feature about this panel are the sliders for reducing chromatic aberration. We all know that shooting wide open with fast primes is going to come with a big side of purple and green fringing. but now we have a 5-second way to get rid of it, and that's amazing. So the last thing I want to cover is just a really quick look at saving your grades and applying them to other clips. If you click on this menu here and select Save Settings, it will bring up a checklist of adjustments that you'd like to save. So when you have your selections in order, you can then save your settings and give it a custom preset name. Now when you're back browsing through Adobe Bridge, you can right-click on a file and bring up the Develop Settings menu. Your preset will be available right there, and all you have to do is click to apply it. And those presets are also available when importing your footage into After Effects. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at color grading your Blackmagic footage in Adobe Camera Raw. Hopefully you have a good idea as to just how simple and how powerful the program is. So that's it, and I'm going to leave you with just a short before and after sequence of clips that have been graded entirely in Adobe Camera Raw.